Ominous warnings this Wednesday night about what the U.S. is planning.
We are just getting started.
The debate over the U.S. justification for the war and whether there's an exit strategy.
When crazy people have nuclear weapons, bad things happen.
And the many Iranians trying to escape the violence. Our Jeff Semple is near Iran's border. A rising star in the U.S. Democratic Party.
We are trying to fundamentally change our politics.
Why James Talarico's primary victory is a watershed moment in deeply conservative Texas. Plus, crash, boom, bang. The nighttime blast that caught much of Metro Vancouver off guard.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. The U.S. president who promised he would never lead the United States into a war has changed his tune. Donald Trump is sounding more like a strongman, wartime president than ever before, bragging about U.S. firepower in a video filled with bravado.
We're going to annihilate their Navy.
There is no sign of peacemaking here. After a blistering air campaign claiming hits on 2,000 targets in Iran, the U.S. and Israel claim they will have complete control of Iranian skies within days. In the Indian Ocean, at least 80 bodies have been recovered by Sri Lankan authorities after the U.S. sank an Iranian warship in international waters. And on the fifth day of its war on Iran, the U.S. and Israel are promising to launch a second round of even more punishing air assaults. While questions about the strategic goals of this war, its legality, and where this leaves the Iranian people persist. Jeff Semple is in Turkey tonight near Iran's northern border and begins our coverage.
Last month, to great fanfare, this Iranian warship set out on a seemingly innocuous training exercise in the Indian Ocean. But this week, the frigate suddenly found itself in the crosshairs. This video captured the moment an American submarine destroyed the Iranian ship, the first time the U.S. has sunk an enemy vessel by torpedo since the Second World War.
An American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Quiet death.
The strike extends the battlefield dramatically, coming nearly 3,000 kilometers from Iran's south off the coast of Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka's Navy says they recovered around 100 bodies, and dozens are still missing. The U.S. says it has now struck 2,000 targets, with 50,000 troops deployed to the Middle East, the largest U.S. military buildup in a generation.
And the results have been incredible. Historic, really.
From an operational tactical perspective, it seems to be going quite well. Air power is very effective at destroying things. The problem, though, as a military analyst, is we don't destroy these things as the goal itself. The destruction is supposed to serve a political goal, some kind of political end state.
With the White House having abandoned talk of regime change, Iran's political future remains dangerously uncertain, and many Iranians aren't waiting to find out.
We're here at one of 3 official border crossings between Iran and Turkey, where hundreds of Iranians who have the paperwork to leave to another country have been doing so, getting out and bringing with them stories of horror from the other side.
In the morning, we woke up to the sound of bombs.
These Iranians say they're hoping to join family in Canada.
People are panicking to leave the country. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to go.
Many told us the initial jubilation experienced when the strikes began is now mixed with devastation. One woman, a doctor who didn't want to appear on camera, told us her hospital was overwhelmed with the injured and her neighborhood was hit by an airstrike. And yet she was still quietly celebrating the strikes against the regime. On one hand, we're happy that good things might happen for our country, this woman told us, but we don't know what will actually happen because in the end, the superpowers decide, and they only care about their own interests.
Those Iranians fleeing here to Turkey arrived just as an Iranian missile was shot out of the sky. It was reportedly heading for a military base that hosts American forces. Turkey, a military power and NATO member, was one country in this region that hadn't been hit. Turkey's president warned it better not happen again. Donna?
Jeff Semple in Vaughan, Turkey. Thank you. The demise of the murderous regime run by Iran's supreme leader is not being mourned, but what happens next and whether the lives of Iranians improve as a result of this attack by the U.S. and Israel is deeply uncertain. As well, there's no evidence Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States. Jackson Proskow looks at the questions being asked about the legality and the justification of this war.
As the U.S. military campaign against Iran grows, American lawmakers are trying to rein in a mission with few clear boundaries.
Taking America to war in Iran was done by President Trump without meaningfully consulting the American people or Congress.
Congress began 2 days of votes on a war powers resolution, demanding President Donald Trump seek their approval before any further attacks on Iran.
We're doing very well on the war front, to put it mildly, I would say. Somebody said, on a scale of 10, where would you rate it? I said about a 15.
We're not at war right now. We're 4 days in to a very specific, clear mission, an operation.
Most Republicans oppose limiting Trump's war powers, but there is worry about any action that could lead to U.S. troops on the ground.
It's not part of the current plan, but I'm not going to remove an option for the president that is on the table.
The only limits we have in this is President Trump's desire to achieve specific effects on behalf of the American people.
The Pentagon is already claiming swift success, suggesting missile launches from Iran have fallen by 86%.
They are toast, and they know it.
The next phase of U.S. operations involves more airstrikes from bombers flying directly over Iran, a sign the country's air defenses are weakened.
We will now begin to expand inland, striking progressively deeper into Iranian territory.
That still doesn't solve the question of who will govern the country in the long term.
Jackson, there are huge profits to be made by the American defense contractors who make the weapons systems being used. Is there any news about how the White House is approaching that?
Well, Donna, the bigger concern right now is about stockpiles of those weapons, despite Trump's claims that he has unlimited munitions at his disposal. Defense company executives are actually expected to meet with the president Friday at the White House, and there is some speculation that Trump may invoke the Defense Production Act to accelerate production of the weapons for this conflict, as well as future battles. Donna?
Okay. Jackson Proskow in Washington. Thanks, Jackson. Kurdish Iranian dissident groups based in northern Iraq have told Associated Press they are preparing for a potential cross-border military operation in Iran. They say the U.S. has asked for their support. If it happens, it would be the first significant entry of ground forces in Iran. The Kurdish groups are widely seen as the most well-organized segment of the fragmented Iranian opposition and are believed to have thousands of trained fighters. With much of the airspace over the Persian Gulf still closed, the Canadian government is now working on ways to help Canadian citizens who want to leave find ways to do that. The Minister of Foreign Affairs says just over 2,000 Canadians out of the more than 100,000 who have registered in the region are requesting help. Heidi Petrachuk explains what their options are.
The situation is volatile and is changing by the hour.
The federal government says it's using 3 ways to get Canadians out of the Middle East: chartered flights, block bookings on commercial airlines, and ground transportation where possible.
75 people departed from Beirut on a commercial flight with seats that we reserved.
Most Canadians, says Anita Anand, and 200 seats over the next 72 hours have also been reserved for others to leave Lebanon. The Foreign Affairs Minister says block bookings and chartered flights are also being worked out in the United Arab Emirates to help more than 1,200 citizens there.
We've been at this for days to ensure that we have options in place for Canadians.
In Qatar, airspace remains closed
because there are still missiles and drones flying.
Queen's University Group is among those stranded in Doha since Saturday.
There have been some lulls in hostilities, but that can change on a dime, of course.
Ottawa says Qatar Airlines is arranging bus transport to take 200 Canadians to airports in other countries, but there is risk.
While we have no indication of roads being targeted by Iranian missiles, when they are intercepted overhead, debris can fall on the road below.
Some stranded Canadians have been increasingly frustrated with what they say has been a lack of timely assistance.
We've been very understanding, with the government out outreach, but at this point, something else needs to be done now.
The minister insists officials have been working around the clock, but acknowledges the situation is unpredictable. For the 74 Canadians stranded in Iran, all Ottawa can offer is consular support in nearby nations.
We just need a seat home. Doesn't matter where.
Ottawa mobilizing to help with that over the next 72 hours. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
Canada's Prime Minister is in Australia, saying he's trying to forge new partnerships that will result in creating high-paying jobs back home. He addressed Australia's Parliament today and spoke again about how middle powers like Canada and Australia have power and can work together to wield it. Mackenzie Gray is traveling with the Prime Minister.
An Australian military band welcoming the Prime Minister with O Canada. And a 19-gun salute as Mark Carney inspected the Australian troops.
The Prime Minister of Canada.
Before taking his pitch for middle powers to band together back on the road.
The question today for middle powers like us is whether we establish the conventions and help write the new rules that will determine our security and prosperity, or let the hegemons dictate outcomes.
Carney adopting portions of his Davos speech for an Australian audience.
From this rupture, we can build something better, more prosperous, more resilient, and more just.
Hegemons like the U.S., who Carney doesn't want to be the only decider of other countries' economic futures.
In the post-rupture world, the nations that are trusted and can work together will be quicker to the punch, more effective in their responses, and more proactive in shaping outcomes, and ultimately, those countries will be more secure and prosperous.
Our countries have always recognised something of ourselves in each other.
Carney and Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese signing new critical minerals, defence and tax agreements.
Our cooperation, our partnership, is a positive choice, not a necessity.
The Prime Minister not just meeting with Albanese, but also the entire Australian cabinet, a rare move that Carney hoped to show was a sign of the closeness between both countries to build a new future together.
These new connections between Australia and Canada are greater than the sum of their parts. This is an alliance reaffirmed, a friendship strengthened, and a partnership to build greater prosperity.
Carney will leave Australia on Thursday for his final stop on his round-the-world trip in Japan, Donna, where he'll meet with their Prime Minister in Tokyo.
Mackenzie Gray, thanks.
Tonight, the people of our state gave this country a little bit of hope. And a little bit of hope is a dangerous thing.
That is James Talarico. His victory in the Senate primary in Texas cements him as a rising star in the Democratic Party in that state. A former school teacher and devout Christian, Talarico is renewing belief among Democrats that this could be the year the party finally flips Texas. Eric Sorensen explains why Talarico's campaign gained traction and why he could be a problem for Republicans.
James Talarico, so nice to meet you.
His campaign went to small communities, even delivered water. As a seminarian, a student of religion, James Talarico's politics are steeped in morality.
The fact that these Americans don't have running water in the richest country in the world is a moral crime.
What chance would a mild-mannered religious progressive have in deeply Republican Texas?
What's taking place in Minneapolis and Minnesota?
First, he had to upset Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett for the Democratic nomination.
I want to talk about the president and his possible involvement with Jeffrey Epstein.
Crockett is a rising star in the party and led in the polls, but Talarico built support crisscrossing Texas, raising money, and then had a stroke of luck. His appearance on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert was dropped over fears that it would violate equal time concerns raised by the Trump administration.
The American people have more trust in gas station sushi than they do in the national news media.
Now they're trying to control what we watch.
Talarico, whose interview played online, was suddenly in the national limelight. He raised over $2 million in 24 hours. More and more people began listening to him.
The real fight in this country is not left versus right, it's top versus bottom.
A man who spoke of Jesus, of love thy neighbor, and saw politics in a different way.
As the hymn says, they will know we are Christians by our love. We have to get back to that.
There is no love lost in Texas politics, which Talarico will discover against the Republicans, either incumbent Senator John Cornyn or MAGA stalwart Ken Paxton. A Democrat hasn't won statewide in Texas in more than 30 years.
We are not just trying to win an election. We are trying to fundamentally change our politics.
In some ways, James Talarico sounds a little bit old-time, but to many, he's coming across as something new.
This is proof that there is something happening in Texas.
Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
When politicians switch parties, coming up, how Canadians feel about MPs crossing the floor. A new poll done exclusively for Global News looks at how Canadians feel about floor crossers, MPs who switch parties while in office without first facing voters in a by-election. 3 Conservative MPs have done that recently and now call themselves Liberals. David Aiken explains what the opinion polling reveals.
How are you, man? Prime Minister Mark Carney has welcomed 3 floor crossers to his caucus since November, and that is a hat trick with no precedent in Canadian parliamentary history. Now, that might make Liberals smile, but many Canadians are frowning. Polling firm Ipsos finds 69% of respondents agree when MPs switch parties, there should be an immediate by-election. 62% say the practice of floor crossing should be outlawed altogether.
Everything that we looked at on floor crossing, what was done over the space of the last little while, is not something that Canadians, in large numbers, support. In fact, they oppose it.
But the political impact of this trio of floor crossers seems to have helped Carney and hurt the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre. 37% say they are, quote, more approving of Carney in the wake of the floor crossings, while 23% are less approving. Just 22% were more approving of Poilievre, but 34% were less approving.
When you look at the motivations and what it says about the character of the individual that did the floor crossing, it splashes back directly on them.
And most Canadians seem resigned that there will be more floor crossings. In fact, 2/3 of survey respondents say they think it is likely that the minority Carney government will become a majority Carney government with at least one more floor crosser to come. Donna.
Okay, David Aiken in Ottawa, thank you. BC's Premier David Eby is reaching out to the governors of the 3 U.S. states along the West Coast, inviting them to also abolish the seasonal time change. Eby has announced this weekend will be the last time the province will spring forward. He's making daylight saving time permanent. In a letter to the governors of Washington, Oregon, and California, Eby says the change will create a string of health and business benefits, and he wants all the region's clocks to be the same. There is some appetite for it, but any time change in the U.S. needs congressional approval. Ahead, what a Manitoba family hopes will come from sharing their grief after their daughter, who was bullied, took her own life. A Winnipeg family is grieving the loss of their 11-year-old daughter. Her parents say she took her own life after being bullied. The family wants to share their story, hoping it raises awareness and helps others in similar situations. Melissa Ridgen reports, and a warning: the story does contain some distressing details.
Marita Star Cologne. That's her seated, singing about the beauty of life.
She's very kind and obedient. She listened. I always considered her my little helper.
She's a very happy girl.
But in recent months, Lorenta and Randall Cologne say their 11-year-old was not her happy self. They say she was being bullied.
It's just stupid how society is, the way that you're supposed to look or the way you're supposed to act.
They say they went to the school.
I had asked, like, hey, my daughter doesn't like being picked on and being bullied. What are you guys going to do about this? Nothing was ever done.
On February 4th, Marita was at home with siblings, and her mom went to get a birthday cake for an older child.
We blocked it. We don't want the kids going down there.
Her grandma takes us to where they came home to the unimaginable.
This is where she was kneeling, facing the wall.
I found my daughter in that room on her knees, hanging by a rope. And I just gently laid her down and I started CPR and
sharing their grief in hopes something can be learned from their agony. The Winnipeg School Division has conflict resolution and mediation protocols in schools, but did not say if those were followed. The division says a grade 6 student taking her own life is a heartbreaking loss, and intensive clinical services have been provided to the school for staff and students. Anti-bullying advocates say there's much more to do.
How we interact with each other can have such a positive influence in the world, or it can have a completely negative influence in the world.
Marita's family knows all too well.
Missing my granddaughter is the pain I have to live with for the rest of my life.
Left picking up the pieces of a child's life ended far too soon. Melissa Ridging, Global News, Winnipeg.
If you or someone you know needs help, you can call or text 988 and reach Canada's Suicide Crisis Helpline. That service is available in both English and French, 24 hours a day, every day. Flash in the night, the boom that caught British Columbians off guard. What it was, next. Many people in and around the Vancouver area were startled last night by a bright flash and a boom that was so loud some people say it shook their houses. People reported a bright fireball in the night sky and a sonic boom just after 9 p.m. Some seismometers in BC picked it up, recording ground motion, vibrations, and seismic waves. Turns out it was a meteor. The flash was seen over a long range, and the sonic boom was heard as far south as Washington State.
This was a meteor that hit our atmosphere. It was a large object coming in at an incredible speed. So when it's an object of that size and that speed, it creates a sonic boom and it creates a streak across the sky. And it was pretty close to us, so it looks like it probably landed somewhere in the Lower Mainland.
No one's found it yet, and there are no reports of any damage. Exceptionally bright meteors are known as boletes and are fragments of rocks or ice that burn up in the Earth's atmosphere and explode. That is Global National for this Wednesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Pitt Meadows, BC. We'd love to see your Canada. Please email it to globalnational@globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.